everybody. Welcome to our kind of teaching corner. We talk very regularly about different things in the sharpening industry. I'm Jason from the Edge Pro, and we're the makers right now of what formerly was Nebraska Blades clipper blade sharpening machines. One of the things that kind of keeps coming up as a subject is the sharpening plates themselves. It's kind of the secret to the sauce. And within that, I want to talk a little bit about history. I want to talk to you a little more in depth about how we came to what materials we're using today and why. And if we look at this machine right here next to me, this is a machine that is used at Oster, even still today, manual sharpening by the factory workers to sharpen clipper blades. The plate itself, by different tapers and different regulation, will give them different results based on what blade they're sharpening and get the results that's needed even at that factory level. We're many years ago became a warranty service center for the factory, and so we have one of these on the floor, and actually you can see there's a blue one right next to us that's got some stuff on top of it, and there's a third one outdoors. So we do have these machines, but again, it's just a machine. The real thing that gets the work done is the plate itself. And on these plates, these being some of the original designs, even back into the 1950s for Oster, and possibly even before that, they used cast aluminum plates. Now in casting, there's some natural side effects of what can happen. In the pore of that aluminum, they will get air pockets. And so when we have air pockets in the castings, we call that porosity. And the porosity itself, obviously we want to keep into kind of a range of acceptability, we'll call it. And that range is very subjective. As a factory, as a person that's observed and used and worked with this stuff now almost 30 years myself, when we started making these wheels, we had to determine at what level is a plate called a side as unacceptable to sell to the public. And so there is that range. It's very subjective again, like I said, but let's look a little closer at this surface so you can at least see the original plates and what they look like. And if we come up and we look in here, there's some dark spots in the grit. And those dark spots, that is where there's a hole. Now what we can visibly see are holes spattered all around, kind of like our solar system. And so we have that, and as we move the plate, we see that they continue all through the surfaces. And they vary in size, and these are the ones that you can see, and that's pretty cool. And this particular plate's in not too bad a shape. There's some bigger ones, some smaller ones. But when we think about this in a bigger picture of porosity, if we were to clean this plate solid off and we brought in a microscope, every time we enhance that depth of vision, what we would see is there's more holes, more open surface area. And every time we resurface the aluminum plate, we're going to expose new ones. Now this is kind of a aid to what we're trying to do. So Oster, Andis, Wall, these major corporations all have used their plates this way over the years. And in a second, we're going to look at an Andis service plate that we originally had, again, as an Andis warranty service center. And in these cases, those surfaces where there's that open porous surface is designed to help us kind of like Velcro. It's working with our grit, with our adhesive that we're going to use. As we scour that surface and break that open, it grabs in and it helps hold the grit in place. So they're very important to the action of what we're doing. Now, there are those that make these out of rolled aluminum. And in our history, we also made different plates in rolled aluminum. As soon as just a couple years ago with our 14-inch plates, and currently still in our 10-inch plates. And some of that is material access, things like that, and it's almost call it easier when we don't do castings. But for the best result, what we've found is that these surfaces really bond the best for our grits when we're using a loose grit like this. Now behind us, we're going to turn around over here. So we're going to be moving around a little bit. There's going to be some little snippets here and there. But I'm going to flip this up. This machine's no longer used. But this also is a cast aluminum plate. And you can see it just looks like the surface of the moon. We've got all the holes, all that porosity coming through. And again, that is on purpose. We do that as what? We said it before, it's our bonding. It helps us when we're putting our grit on. Now let's walk over to our machine that we manufacture today. It's on the other corner of the room. This is the machine that we use every single day. And we're gonna look and just see what the porosity here looks like. And here's just a great example, just starting out. We've got a good hole here and around, all around us. These are the bigger holes. But like I said, if you zoom in, you can really see all the tiny holes. And then there's ones that are even smaller that our eyes can't pick up on. And there's a little bit bigger one. There's a couple bigger ones up here. And they could be double, triple that size easily and still fill with grit. And when the plate is coming up to speed, let me see, we'll turn this on. We'll get it up to full speed. And I want you to tell me, once it's up to full speed, how many of those holes you still see. Because now we're working under a rotation of that plate at about 1700 RPM. You don't see that. And when we go to sharpen over that surface, what happens is the speed of the plate, the accuracy of our overall surface, they're going to just bridge over any pock that would have been there. And the grit has already filled it, right? So we're just really bridging over the top. My hand will be kind of in the way, but we're gonna come in. You don't see that we're falling into potholes or anything like that. We're just jumping right through. It's not hurting or bothering anything in our process. And so any of that porosity, obviously, like I said, done on purpose, isn't gonna really harm anything. I'm gonna grab, now you'd think, wow, if some of those holes were a little bit bigger, what happens when you get a small blade, like a little tiny trimmer? Well, listen to this, feel it. It's still just as smooth and accurate as before. So any of those little inaccuracies of that surface due to the pocking of the porosity, we bridge right past it. And so it does not affect the actual use of the plate. We get questioned a lot about this, and for those end users that get a plate and they see the holes, we've been given advice that our plates have rusted. First of all, aluminum doesn't rust, so that's out the door. And you could say, well, it corroded. You know, it had like an acidic something that spilled on it, and now we've got this look. No, it's actually in the casting process. Now, when they do that process, one of the interesting things is if they pour at the wrong rate and it traps extra air, like a big pocket of air, a little balloon inside, when we get the cast mold opened, there'll be big old holes. I mean, you know, like the size of a softball, things like that. Now, obviously, a plate like that, they wouldn't even show us. The foundry would go ahead and just melt that back down and start over. And so we're not wasting anything either. By the time they get to us, the blanks that we get, you can see a lot of what type of porosity it is, but we'll start in on the manufacturing process, and we start by creating the hub center and the round diameter of the outside of the plate, so we have something to mount into our CNC lathe. As we do that, we may expose an area that all of a sudden you didn't know was there, and now it's like we're in Florida and there's a sinkhole, right? And that big old hole just opened up, and it's the size of a silver dollar, something like that. Well, we can't, a pothole that big. Now, you know, you drive down the road and you hit a pothole, and if it's big enough, your tire falls in it, not just bounce over it, right? So if we see that, we also pull that wheel aside, and it goes back to the foundry to get melted down. Out of 100 plates, there may be 3 of those that are to that level. And obviously, we won't see those necessarily until we start into the lathe process. But when we do, again, they're called out. Think about the level at which we are taking care for this. When it gets to the point where we are packaging it and boxing it, that plate has been approved by us as working properly, functional, and ready for use. This plate here with the little bit of surface area, it's been resurfaced. We're up about 10 or 12 resurfacings. There's still a lot of thickness and life. to that plate. We haven't really had anything weird pop up once we've resurfaced. And, you know, we get a lot of life out of these plates. You know, we want to see people get over 1,000 sets of sharpened blades per side on a plate. In our internal testing, we do a lot more than that. We have people around the world that give us testimony of getting 4, 5, 6,000 sets on a side of a plate. And so those things are attainable through grit management, but we can't sit there and always just blame what the surface is. So understanding it a little better, hopefully this will open your eyes to the what and why of how it's manufactured, why we pick the plates that we do, and you can trust what we're selling coming out in the market has already been scrutinized and is ready for use. Hey, thank you for listening to us. I hope this was educational, and happy sharpening.